Good morning, everyone. Welcome to Mountain Vista. We're glad you're all here today.
Good morning, everyone. Welcome. Welcome to all of you here at Mountain Vista UU congregation, where we rest in and share the desert of what was, is, and always will be the home of the O'odham and the Yaqui people. We acknowledge as a way to reflect our actively seeking to develop relationships of justice, equity, and trust with all who feel kinship to this place named Sonoran Desert. My name is Samaradi. I am one of the practice associates helping with today's service, led by our settled minister, Reverend Matthew Funkkreri, as well as the talents of MVU staff, which include Chris, our music director, Stacy, our RE coordinator, Tay, our engagement coordinator, and Stephanie, our administrator. Our professional staff provides the structure needed to do all that we do. In addition, thank you to the many volunteers that contribute here each week. Thank you, Joel, for being our song leader. Thank you to our AV crew today, which includes Lee, Ann, Alex, and Todd, as well as Chuck on camera. And thank you to the volunteers and RE, Grace and Aaron, who are helping take care of our children. This wouldn't be possible with all of you, any of you. Our services are not just attended by those of you here in person, but also virtually, whether now or at a later time. Some will be watching this and some will watch it at a later time, and you are also welcome. If we can, please turn around and wave at our folks attending virtually. Today's service continues our theme of Don't Fear the Future. We started last week with engaging the future, and today's focus is loving the future. So my mom was the first person who introduced me to science fiction. At around 8 or 9 years old, she gave me my first Isaac Asimov book, Pebble in the Sky. It starts with a regular guy who accidentally gets sent thousands of years into the future and his adventures. So now, while the future was pretty bleak for Earth's inhabitants, through the course of the book, a possible, hopeful future emerges. And it started me on the sci-fi genre. In my teen years, I read Octavia Butler's books, which addressed gender fluidity, race, role expectations, David Weber's military science fiction series, where the future had these complex political systems, very reminiscent of today, and also broke down gender expectations and roles. Of course, there were books where the future was bleak, but the overall draw and excitement was to stories of what human adaptability could look like. A vision of what progress could be, or even exploring what it means to be human and the practice of empathy and compassion in radically different ways. It opened up possibilities. It's so easy to get caught up in fearing the future. Things feel intense, and we're surrounded by reactionary messaging that keeps us hooked in this fear cycle. We're also influenced by other people's emotions. We can't help it. We have mirror neurons, which are a type of brain cell. They activate when we observe someone performing a certain behavior and influences us to try to mirror it, especially if we can connect to it. So if we observe people who appear anxious, our mirror neurons might activate, causing us to also have our own emotional processes in response. Fear can be contagious. It's a survival mechanism. It can be helpful as long as we're aware of its influence. Loving the future means starting now with who we are and loving our imperfectness and our imperfect world. It's about loving our world while noticing the fear. Some of the possibilities I read about as a child are already happening. Tablets, the internet, growing acceptance of all types of identity, all dreamed about in science fiction. Nnedi Okorafor, author of Who Fears Death, says, "Imagination and ideas. You cannot find a solution to a problem until you imagine that you cannot find a solution to a problem until you imagine that solution first. If you are incapable of imagining that which is not there or has never been, you're already at a huge disadvantage." Science fiction does all this. Join us in imagining how to love the hell out of our future. Thank you. Today's chalice lighting, Being Human Means We Are of This Earth, by Sweet Home Teacup. Sweet Home Teacup is a Portland, Oregon-based yoga instructor and the founder of the Yoga and Animal Rights Alliance. May we recognize and abandon the familiar attitudes and practices that do not serve the whole. We are who we are, and we have the opportunity to be who we want to be, to create a new inheritance for the future. May our thoughts, words, and actions in our daily lives assist in dismantling paradigms of oppression and suffering. May we give thanks for our individual place in time and space, to our families and our relationships that touch and change us. May we give thanks to the wise teachers who help us remember how to be and the chance to make it so. Underneath and within these stories and histories is our humanity. Being human means we are of this earth. We are these waters, we are fire and atmosphere, we are the sun and the moon and the stars. We are all that we see, and the wisdom is revealed by looking in between. Thank you.
Good morning. Our opening hymn is number 315, This Old World. I invite you to rise in body or in spirit, and with Joel's leadership, join your voices together.
This whole world is full of sorrow, full of sickness, weak and sore. If you love your neighbor truly, love will come to you the more. We're all children of one family, we're all brothers, sisters too. If you cherish one another, love and friendship come to you. This old world can be a garden full of fragrance, full of grace. If we love our neighbors truly, we must meet them face to face. It is said now, love thy neighbor, and we know well that is true. If the sum of human labor, true for me as well as you.
I invite you now to a time of contemplation, of considering and pondering loving the hell out of the world. But first, I want to say hi. Hi, I'm Reverend Matthew. Welcome. Nice to have you with us. But I want to start with a confession. I really get a kick out of saying hell in public. I discovered back as a child in elementary school that there are many who consider hell to be a curse word. In my family, it wasn't. We casually said, well, what the hell, when startled, or oh, hell, when disappointed. And it was a common exclamation if we suddenly realized, hell, we're running late. And of course, that wasn't the same for several of my classmates. In its entry for hell, McGraw-Hill's Dictionary of American Slang says, one would not expect middle-class children to use this at home or on the playground, as it turned out. Most kids didn't use it or went out of their way to avoid saying it, saying instead H-E double hockey stick. Hockey not being a reference point for growing up in Tucson, I didn't figure out what that meant until I lived in Minnesota. But as a child, I knew what hell was. According to the white, middle-class, middle-of-the-road Christianity that I was raised in, hell was an eternal place of fire and brimstone that all sinners deserve to be in as punishment for their transgressions here on earth. As a kid, that didn't really have much application beyond the joy of saying it out loud when others wouldn't. It wasn't until I was in that early mix of preteen puberty and I began questioning my orientation, my attraction to classmates of different genders, that the doctrine hit home, and it was hell. As a beautiful part of me was awakening, I was terrified of it. I was scared of myself. And so I stayed up night after night, tortured by the thought that there was something wrong, something sinful about me, rather than resting in the truth that something wonderful, loving, was blossoming within me. As you probably know, hell is half of the dual afterlife in Christianity. Heaven is the good place, and the evil counterpart is hell. And there's a range of severity within Christian doctrine about hell. Progressive Christians, they teach that hell is a metaphor. It's a separation from God. It's a break in the loving tradition with the divine and not a post-mortem reality. Conservative Christian, on the other hand, rely on hell being the real deal. If you are virtuous, according to their set of morals, then you will go to the good place. And if you are sinful, again, according to their set of morals, you will go to the bad one. And if that sounds a little quaint, well, that's on me and my description, because the theology of hell has a real world impact. In Give Them Hope Not Hell, a 2016 sermon by the Reverend Meg Barnhouse, she makes it crystal clear hell has death-dealing consequences. As an example, she quotes a conservative Christian minister prominent in California at the time as teaching that if a parent were to find out that their child was gay and the child wouldn't repent of their sin, then the parent was to turn them over to Satan and shun them and toss them out on the street. Reverend Meg goes on to relate that in America, gay teens who come out, 26% are told to leave home. And this leads gay, lesbian, bisexual, and transgender youth 4 times more likely to attempt to end their life than their straight peers. Even teens who are questioning their sexuality were 3 more times likely to attempt to end their lives than straight peers. Conservative Christian parents are taught that they are doing something virtuous, good, practicing hard love by shunning their children and tossing them away. They are taught that they are going to save everyone from going to the bad place, when really all they're doing is creating hell on earth. And here's the kicker. That hell, that fire and brimstone afterlife ruled by Satan that keeps you up at night hell, it's not in Christian scriptures. It's not in Hebrew scriptures. And that's just a really respectful way to say it's not in the Bible. That gloomy, stinking, burning after-death place of punishment that some fear so much that it can only talk about it as H-E double hockey stick. That hell comes from 2 epic narrative poems. The 14th century Inferno by Dante Alighieri and the 17th century Paradise Lost by John Milton. When the word hell appears in scriptures, it's a mistranslation of other words that shunts in the imagination of an Italian and a British poet. It wasn't at all what was in the mind or the heart or the teachings of the 1st century rabbi Jesus of Nazareth. It couldn't be. Our version of hell hadn't been created then. Jesus' astonishing brilliance that has been shining for 2 centuries is love your neighbor, love your enemy, just as God loves you as Abba, a father. And for his ministry of love to everyone, those in center and in power, and those marginalized and on the fringe of society, his ministry to everyone, he was crucified. Christology, the theology of Jesus the Christ, teaches that his death on the cross offers believers salvation from their sins. And it's right there, at that point, in this doctrine, this is where our forebears, the Universalists and the Unitarians, they get into the action. You may have been wondering, when are we going to show up? It's now. The Universalists were liberal Christians who believed in universal salvation. Their faith in God's love was so powerful. They believed that because Jesus died on the cross, hell got closed down. turn out the lights, eternal damnation is over. In the 18th century America, they were popularly known as the No-Hellites, and not in a nice way. At roughly the same time, another bunch of liberal Christians believed that human beings were created in the image of God. Therefore, human beings must use God-given gift of reason for revelation of theological truth. And their rationale on hell went like this: do you want your children to suffer eternal damnation? And if you love them, your answer is no. No, you would not. And so it rises to reason that God, who Jesus taught was the loving Father of everyone, would not want anyone to suffer eternally. And thus they took hell out of the equation. Now, they also believed in the unity and not the Trinity of God, and for this they were popularly called Unitarians, and not in a nice way. Now, a lot happened between when we got involved in that doctrine, the Universalists and the Unitarians, and tossed out hell in their own ways, and a 1961 merger of both of those traditions that birthed a new faith, Unitarian Universalism. Up to that merger and that birthing, as liberal Christians, they followed the example of Jesus' ministry, using both love and reason, not just to think or feel about theology, but to do something about it. And that is what we've inherited from our liberal Christian parents. Today, our secular faith tradition, well, we won't tell you what's going to happen to you after you die. We don't know. We don't know. Instead, what we do is bring our hearts and our minds into action here, now. Because we experience that sorrow and that suffering, the isolation and the pain, the very hell that we would inflict upon one another in this world. And so we really do try to live into words attributed to the Reverend John Murray, who is sometimes called the father of universalism in America. He said, "Go out into the highways and the byways and give the people something of your new vision. You may possess a small light, but uncover it. Let it shine. Use it to bring more light and understanding to the hearts and the minds of all. Give them not hell, but hope and courage, and preach the kindness and everlasting love of God." Think of that. You don't have to be a theist. Think of that. In fact, better yet, think and feel that. Feel that as the DNA of our secular faith tradition. It is well summed up in the words of the Reverend Joanna Fontaine Crawford, speaking for us in this century. We love the hell out of the world. And on that night decades ago, that's what my mother did. After several sleepless nights, I went to her and I shared my confusion and my fear about the love I felt for my classmates, male, female, everyone in between and everyone beyond. I was terrified she would reject me. And yet, she only held me and with comforting clarity said, "That's right. That's good. That's what we do. We love everybody. We love everybody." And I may not be a Christian, but I sure as hell believe my mother. Hell exists, not through the machinations of the devil plotting to steal your soul for eternal damnation. Hell exists because of the evil that we do to one another, human being to human being. Unitarian Universalists exist to love. Love as Jesus taught centuries ago. Love everybody. It's not a limited love. It's not for just those you know or even you feel comfortable with. Excuse me. It's not even for those you like. It's not a limited love. Let your light shine. Let it be a brilliance of connection and understanding that it brings to this world, of healing, of saving, and of loving the hell that we make right out of the world. May it be so. Not because somebody told you, not because I told you, but because you choose it to be so.
The Green After by Reverend Meg Barnhouse. Today, I have too many friends who are dying. Sometimes at a memorial service, I feel dissatisfied, and I'm the preacher in charge. The plain truth is no one knows for sure what happens when we die. That's not a very stirring thing to proclaim at a funeral, though, honest as it is. We all have some kind of belief about it, even if that belief is that there is nothing after we die. The reason I haven't preached it yet, because when I call to mind my belief about the afterlife, it comes to me as a color. At a camping weekend with friends, we were nestled in a clearing on a mountainside. Most of the folks were around the campfire talking or dozing. Our chef was in the cooking tent grilling and gossiping with his fiancée and a couple of others. He wasn't wearing his high heels that day. He does sometimes, but only on camping weekends. I love those people, and they love me. Being surrounded by love is one fine way to spend time. I wandered off to the hammock and lay there looking up at the sky through early April leaves. I was soaked with light, the blue of the sky, the green of young leaves, the sun shining through them like stained glass. I thought, when I die, I want to have my ashes buried under this tree, so that for one spring after another, my body can be part of this particular green. I could feel my life flowing through the cells of a leaf, feel the leaf opening to the warmth and the light, feel myself part of that green, and I was happy. If that is my afterlife, I will be deeply happy. I know it can happen. The minerals and the water in my body can be soaked up through the roots of that tree. A part of my body will unfurl, green in the sun. My soul may be somewhere else. Sometimes I think my soul will float in an ocean of love. Will I recognize old friends, families who have gone on ahead? I don't know. I think I will know that they are there. I will know this. There is not now, nor was there ever, any separation between us. I will know that they were with me the whole time, as strongly when I was alive as when I'm part of the leaves. The green of a new leaf, lit from behind with a spring sun, stays inside me. A glowing place of peace, the certainty that I will always be part of life. During a memorial service, I see that green. I feel that peace. It's hard to preach a color, but I'm going to think of a way.
Some mornings, I have everything planned out down to the last note. Some mornings, I come up with what I'm going to play on the drive here. Some mornings, I get all the way to the drive here. I get to the piano, I sit down, and I start to warm up, and I still have no idea what I'm going to play. And about 15 minutes before the service start, Reverend Matthew came over this morning and said, "It's all about green this morning." That's the color in the overwhelming, the green that is love. The green by tradition is the color of the heart chakra, the green of nature, the green that is love. And he said he was going to mention that song that Kermit the Frog sang. And so I thought, aha, that's a gorgeous song. It's by Joe Raposo, who did a lot of the music, most of the music, for the first several years of Sesame Street and the Electric Company. And I confess the first few years of Sesame Street, I was exactly the right age for. So Joe Raposo's music really has an indelible print on my soul. And So I committed to playing that song because I thought it's a beautiful song, the harmony is beautiful. And I was about 4 measures into it when I realized it's a whole lot of repeated notes. It needs the words. So if you'll indulge me, for the interlude, I'd like to give you the words. It's not that easy being green, having to spend each day the color of the leaves, when I think it could be nicer being red or yellow or gold or something much more colorful like that. It's not easy being green. It seems you blend in with so many other ordinary things, and people tend to pass you over because you're not standing out like flashy sparkles in the water or stars in the sky. But green's the color of spring, and green can be cool and friendly like, and green can be big like an ocean, or important like a mountain, or tall like a tree. When green is all there is to be, it could make you wonder why, but why wonder, why wonder? I am green, and it'll do just fine. It's beautiful, and I think it's what I want to be.
We arrive here in our sanctuary, in person and virtually, with joys and sorrows and everything in between. And so we pause to share what is in our individual lives so that as a congregation we can hear and hold, we can celebrate and comfort one another together. We pour out water collected from Sonoran skies, from our homes and from our travels. This is Mountain Vista Unitarian Universalist. And then we drop in a stone for each joy or sorrow named as each comes into our embrace.
Good morning. I'm Tom Bunch. I'm a member of your pastoral care team. For celebration and comfort, Pat Desai, a longtime member and a former board president, had a concern about her heart in this past week that led to an overnight stay in the hospital. Fortunately, she learned that her heart is working much better than her doctors thought it was. And some of you may remember her son, Sanjay Desai. He's living with multiple sclerosis, or MS. Reverend Matthew and I have been regularly visiting him in the care center for the last 9 months. They're happy to say that they both wish to communicate that he would enjoy visits from others, even for just 10 minutes. This can break up his day in a good way. Please talk to either Reverend Matthew or myself if you're interested in visiting. Pat also suggested that we share a bit about our visits. You want to take the lead here, Reverend Matthew?
Sure, thank you. It is a joy to visit Sanjay. It's challenging. He has not been able to speak for several years, and he is just learning to speak again. And so I go to learn his language. And we've agreed at our last visit that I will be finding short science fiction stories to take and to read to him.
In these visits, as with visiting anyone, my goal is just to show up and be there with the mystery that is Sanjay. As Reverend Matthew mentioned, his mystery includes MS, which results in him not being mobile, not having eaten in a couple of years, not having spoken for 2 years until recently. And so he speaks with difficulty. This means we talk for 5 minutes, maybe 10, and then we sit together and share the audio book, usually science fiction, that he is currently listening to. I am seen by him, I see him, and mystery, and this appears to be enough. To see and be seen feels good. And even though my visit may break up his day, my visit also breaks up my day in a very powerful way.
In addition to what's been spoken, we know there are more unnamed among us. And so we add handfuls of stones for the unspoken joys. And even more for the unnamed sorrows. And just as we have shared, we add more for everything in between. As our ritual ends, our response begins. In celebration or in comfort, we respond to one another with love. And leading us is our pastoral care team. Yes, we lead with, as sometimes we say, visits, cards, and casseroles. More than that, we listen, we are present, and we lead our congregation. We lead Mountain Vista Unitarian Universalist in love. So in the future, if you have a joy or sorrow, anything to share in between, we are listening. If you wish, we will share it here on Sunday. But for now, for all that we have heard and all that we know and hold among us unnamed, let us begin to respond in love. I invite you now to a time of meditation, of listening, and of breath, and of color. Joe Pinella is a healer. As a teenager in New York City, he learned Tai Chi and Qigong from the Shaolin monks in Chinatown. Back in June of 1991, he was in a car accident in Flagstaff that left him a quadriplegic. He once told me in the challenging, hard times that followed as he tried to recover with only a prognosis that one day he might be able to feed himself again. He called the monastery and he spoke with his old master. Through a translator, he was told, "Go back to the beginning. Do the practice as if you are growing from the womb." And so, at first, only in his imagination. And then, painfully, slowly, from his chair with just his arms, and then finally with his whole body, Joe practiced Tai Chi and Qigong, healing what was broken. His surgeon doesn't claim to know how. And some of you may know Joe from his healing practice teaching Qigong in Oro Valley a few years back. My family and I know him as a father-son, a not our biological father. Joe, by the way, says hi to all of you from Sicily, where he and his wife Debbie now live. And it's with his blessing that I want to share with you the Rainbow Meditation, which is a regular start of his healing practice. And we begin just by resting in your seat where you're at, placing your own hands on your knees, palm down. Just breathe as your body allows and relax. And in a moment, we're going to take 9 slow breaths together. And as we breathe in, you'll just raise up your hands. And as we breathe out, you just bring them back to rest. And as we breathe in, we're going to imagine a color filling us up, starting with our toes and through our bodies to the top of our heads. And as we breathe out, imagine the color flowing out through you, down through your body, and out through your feet. Do whatever your body requires, moving and breathing and welcoming whatever images come to you as each color fills you. Let's begin. Breathe in and imagine a world of colors rising in you: red, orange, yellow, green, blue, indigo, and violet, and let them flow out. Breathe in and imagine red. Red, the color of joy, filling you, and let it flow out. In and imagine orange, the color of wonder, rising up, 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 and flowing from you. In and welcoming yellow into your body, the color of freedom and liberation, and flowing forth. Now welcome green, the color of love. Let it fill you up and let it flow right back into the world. Breathe in blue. Blue, the color of truth and honesty and clarity and reality, and let it go. Breathe in indigo, the night sky and the shadows, the color of everything that lives beyond you, and out, allowing life to flow from you. Breathe in violet, the crowning color of the cosmos, life, the universe, and everything in a single color, and then let it out. And finally, breathe in the rainbow as one. Breathe in as much as you can of the reds and oranges and the yellows, the greens, the blues, the violets, the indigos, and all of its meaning and images. Fill yourself and breathe it out. Release the rainbow into this old world and refresh it with your vitality and your meaning, and rest. As you return to regular breathing, know more clearly your relationship with the world, that you take only what you need, but you give back all you can.
Last week, we started learning a new song. Let's review what we did. Do you have the slide for In These Hard Times? There we go. Remember that? Let's give that a try. In these hard times, there will always be singing, always be singing. In these hard times,
In these hard times, there will always be singing, always be singing in these hard times.
let's do that one more time and be thinking. If this feels low or high for you, I have something for you in just a moment. And in these
Hard times, there will always be singing, always be singing in these hard times. In these hard times there will always be singing, always be singing in these hard times.
Now, if you're more comfortable singing a little bit higher than that, I've got the thing for you. It involves these three notes. Yes, there will always be singing. Yes, in these hard times. Just sing that much with me. And
Yes, there will always be singing. Yes, in these hard times.
and it sounds very similar. Yes, there will always be singing in these hard times. Let's sing that second part of the phrase. And yes, there will always be singing in these hard times. Good, let's try that. If you feel more comfortable singing a little bit lower, then sing the melody. I'm going to sing the melody. If you feel comfortable singing a little bit higher, sing the higher part that we just learned, and Joel will lead you through that, even though I think I'm slightly higher than he is, but that's okay. So the melody people start on in these hard, and the higher people start here. 1 and 2 and 3. In these hard
Yes, there will always be singing. Yes, in these hard times. Yes, there will always be singing in these hard times. Yes, there will always be singing. Yes, in these hard times. Yes, there will always be singing in these hard times.
Now, one more little wrinkle before I let you go on this one. This is what we call a zipper song. So we can swap out the word singing for dancing, for any of a number of other words. Let's sing it twice again with dancing. In these hard times, there will always be dancing. I don't know if there's words. I don't know if there's a slide for that. You don't need no stinking slides. 1, 2, 3. In these hard
Yes, there will always be dancing, always be dancing in these hard times. Yes, there will always be dancing in these hard times. Yes, there will always be dancing. Yes, in these hard times. Yes, there will always be dancing in these hard times.
And watch your newsletter. The Wednesday after Labor Day, choir starts back up. If you aren't already on the list, drop me an email, chris.tackett@mvuu.org, and I'll make sure you get all the music department emails. Thank you.
Please be seated. Indulge me for just a second in this question. What is your future? Not everybody else's, but what is your future? To liberally borrow from Reverend Meg, the plain truth is that no one knows for sure what the future is like, which is hardly a stirring thing for a sermon as honest as it is. And yet we all have some kind of belief in it, even if yours is a great big nothing. So if you will, close your eyes as you are comfortable and imagine your future. What future do you believe in? without judgment, safe here in our secular faith community, I invite you to imagine. It might just be 10 minutes from now, or it could be 10 years. It might be a still photo or a cinematic experience. Whatever comes to you, spend just a few moments with it. How does your future feel? Joyful or sad? Wondrous or bleak? Liberated or confined? Is there hope or fear in your future? Is there truth or lies? Is there life or death? Are you imagining the universe, or is there just nothing? And here is why I ask, what I really, really want to know, what color is your future? What color? Even if you imagine your future as empty, know that nothing has a color. The black of void, the cloudy white of the unknown, even a dusty green of an empty chalkboard. Truth is, here, alongside your future, there is a kaleidoscope of futures, a whole rainbow of colors, multiple futures, each possible, each waiting to happen right here. Now I'm curious, how many people imagined a green future? I see some, a little bit. As Chris mentioned, and I have been taught by Joe, the Hindu chakras teach that green is the color of the heart. Green bridges all of our earthly colors, the reds and the oranges and the yellow, with the universal colors, the blue and the indigo and the violet. It brings together what is in us and what is beyond us. And simply put, green is love. And it's not easy being green. I know, I went ahead and said it. I know, right? Thank you for teeing that one up for me. Even if you didn't learn it from Kermit the Frog, you know from your own past experience, it's not easy to love. And that's hardly startling or stirring for a sermon, but it's honest. Sometimes it's not easy because we mistake love for something else entirely. We mistranslate love, and we shunt in other contemporary meanings which are not love at all. And that makes love hard. Thomas Merton, who's a Christian Trappist monk and a very wise teacher, once warned that we are in a competitive, consumer culture where we mistake love as a business deal. He wrote, "This concept of love assumes that the machinery of buying and selling of needs is what makes everything run. The entire universe. It regards life as a market and love as a variation on free enterprise. And you may recognize this as, if you don't love me if you don't do this for me." Worse, perhaps, than the capitalization of love is its weaponization. I'm doing this because I love you. I hope you have never heard that before, but I know it's not true. It very well might have been on the minds of parents who followed conservative Christian teachings with their hard love and tossed away their kids, coming out or questioning. If someone is doing those things, capitalizing or weaponizing, and calling it love, let's be just really clear with each other, okay? They're wrong. That's not love. Love is patient. Love is kind. Love is not envious or boastful or arrogant or rude. Love does not insist on its own way. It is not irritable. It keeps no record of wrongs. It does not rejoice in wrongdoing, but it rejoices in the truth. Or at least that's how the first generation of Christians, the earliest followers of Jesus of Nazareth, tried to understand what he taught them, tried to live it in a community. They sought to envision themselves as if in a mirror, as imperfect, mortal beings struggling to make sense. How do you love your neighbor? How do you love your enemy? And then they got a few things right. But mostly, if you listen to that list, they named why love, real, genuine love, is not easy. Because each of those real things about love, patience and kindness, not being envious or arrogant or boastful or rude, those are all choices. And while it's not at all stirring, it is true. Love is a choice. As M. Scott Peck, psychologist and writer, makes it clear, love is an act of will, namely both an intention and an action. It also implies choice. We do not have to love. We choose to love. We choose to love. I'm not going to tell you that you have to choose love. You don't. It's certainly not my place as your pastor to tell you that you must do anything, any more than it's my place to tell you what color your future is. Because there are times when it's right to choose not to love, when it's the safest choice you can make. If someone says to you that you must love them in a capitalistic or a weaponistic way, then tell them no. That's not love. And if you are demanding love from someone else, please stop. Because love can be chosen, but it can't be demanded. Love nurtures, and it cannot be used to hurt. Picking up that mirror and continuing to stare in it centuries later, the inestimable Bell Hooks imagined an ethic of love in her essays. And just as you cannot look at the back of your head when you're looking in a mirror, she noted that there are spaces and places of love that we cannot perceive alone. We need other people to begin to understand what love fully is. She writes, the ability to acknowledge our blind spots can emerge only as we expand our concern and our capacity to care. Care about oppression and exploitation of others, and a love ethic makes this expansion possible. She explored the justice movements of the civil rights era and wrote, it always puzzled me that women and men who spend a lifetime working to resist and oppose one form of domination can systematically be supporting another one. I conclude, she says, that many of us are motivated to move against domination solely because we feel our self-interest is directly threatened. Often, then, the longing is not for a collected transformation of society. It's not for changing the future, but rather simply for an end to what we feel is hurting us. Now that's right. Absolutely, no questions asked. Always stop what is hurting you and stop hurting others. That's self-preservation. That's survival. That is good. But don't assume that is all love is capable of. Just as the early Christians found, Bell Hook locates the possibility to find and choose love within community. We need multiple mirrors, multiple visions to see the places we can't. Choosing love, we also choose to live in community. And that means we do not have to change by ourselves. And there it is. That's really the issue at hand. That's really what's hardest. That's the most uneasy part of love. When you choose love, it changes you. And I just want to know who today, this morning, would love to be changed right now? No, good. I appreciate that. Because most of the time, we rightly just want to stop being hurt. We just want to stop the constant fear, the constant hate, the oppression. That's right. That's good. But when we look in the mirror and we really perceive ourselves, it's hard to change. It's hard to change. And that's what love does. When we choose to love, you don't gotta, but when you do, you set in motion a brand new future. Love that transforms neighbors and enemies. Imagine that. Love that challenges and supports us to be patient and kind and generous and humble and trusting. Imagine that. You don't have to do any of it alone. Love is a relationship. And the really good news is you don't do it alone. You see, here at MVUU, we've already chosen love. This was created before I came here, but I added the bold red emphasis. We've already chosen the hard path of loving, welcoming those we do not yet know, encouraging diversity, asking, listening, and speaking with care, and sticking together through the hard times. We've already chosen, and not just from the past to today. This is the future that we've chosen together. You see, in this room, through Zoom, and into the future, if someone's watching this recording, there is a chaos of colorful futures, and each and every one of them is possible. But the people who choose to participate in this secular faith community, we've also made another choice. And it's not just of one future. We've chosen love to guide us into all of our futures, into the hopeful and to the fearful and everything in between and beyond them. We've chosen the familiar futures, as familiar as our own faces in the mirror, and we've chosen the futures that we cannot yet perceive. We've chosen to change. And it's not a rejection of the past, it's just not a rejection of each other. It's just not a rejection of one another. From all the colors and the hues and the temperatures, we've chosen a rainbow connection. Yeah, you see, I went and did it again. In the wisdom of Kermit the Frog, someday we'll find it, the rainbow connection, the lovers and the dreamers, us. And shining across the centuries, that's the call of love. It's the call for us to create side by side every possible future. And if you're wondering how we're going to do that, then you'll hear a little bit more in a few minutes in our announcements. But next Sunday, as we conclude the Don't Fear the Future beginning to this church year, with Transforming the Future, you're going to hear specifics, ways that you can get involved to bring your love, to choose love, and to transform tomorrow. But for today, may we just hear the call. May we follow that guide. May we love the future of joy and wonder, of liberation, of truth and life and everything into being, as I have been taught. Amen. Aho, blessed be. As we choose it, may it be so. Our concluding hymn is 1014, Answering the Call to Love. Please rise in body or in spirit. Join your voices together with Joel's leadership. The promise of the Spirit, faith, hope, and love abide. So every soul is blessed and made whole. The truth in our hearts is our guide. We are answering the call of love. Hands joined together as hearts beat as one. Emboldened by faith, we dare to proclaim we are answering the call of love. Sometimes we build a barrier to keep love tightly bound, corrupted by fear, unwilling to hear, denying the beauty we found. We are answering the call of love. Hands joined together as hearts beat as one. Emboldened by faith, we dare to proclaim we are answering the call of love. A bright new day is dawning, when love will not divide. Reflections of grace in every embrace, fulfilling the vision divine. We are answering the call of love. Hands joined together as hearts beat as one. Emboldened by faith, we dare to proclaim we are answering the call of love. We are answering the call of love. Please be seated.
I have a tab saved on my computer with all the quotes about today's youth. It starts with, I think, Aristotle. There might have been a few before that, and it kind of goes throughout history about as each generation complains about how the changes are going to lead to disaster. My favorite one is the printing press, that giving people access to the amount of books is going to ruin society. Can't remember off the top of my head. I like looking at this because every once in a while I notice myself going into that place of fear, like the amount of changes that have happened just in my lifetime, and worrying about how my children are growing up so differently than how I grew up. And so, of course, I try to control some of it, but I also try to remember that it's okay to be excited about the changes that they're going through and the changes that they will grow up with. A favorite quote of mine, as those of you saw me pick up my phone during the service, is by Octavia Butler. All that you touch, you change. And all that you change, changes you. The only lasting truth is change, from her book, Parable of the Sower. And so let us continue to love the future and the changes that it will happen. So our announcements today, as you walk through and leave our sanctuary to share in refreshments and fellowship, you'll see a wooden bowl and a woven basket. The wooden bowl is for your financial support of our congregation, and the woven basket is for our monthly justice partner, which this month is Hendricks Hawks and the Laguna Longhorns. So those are 2 elementary schools in our neighborhood, Flowing Wells District. As we collect this month, all that we collect this month will go towards supplies that will be purchased for students and teachers, in tandem with our volunteers who give their time as teachers' aides and tutors. Go Longhorns and Hawks. All your gifts are gratefully received. Human Society Project. Today ends our MVU Kids project to make a difference in the lives of animals at the Humane Society. Following their lead, we have collected supplies and money to take to the shelter and make the animals' stay there easier. Thank you for all that you've done with your gifts to the Humane Society animals and support of our MVU kids. As a sponsor of the Climate Justice Revival of Side with Love's first ever Climate Justice Revival, we have a packet of materials ready to lead us through 2 weekends of programming at the end of September and the start of October. Vince Pavlovsky has formed a team to lead us, but if you're wondering what it's all about, is there? Yep, there's Vince in video.
What does it mean to center love in the climate movement? First, we must understand that yes, climate change impacts all of us, and marginalized communities are impacted first and worst by climate disruption and are often least resourced to adapt to and respond to changing climate conditions, and that's usually by design. With deep roots in extractive systems of harm and systemic oppression, climate justice is racial justice, is gender justice, is disability justice, mental health justice, LGBTQIA+ justice, immigration justice, economic justice, trans justice, and on and on and on. Climate justice is an intersectional justice issue, and one we must understand and address as the complex crisis it is, with the same roots as the systems of oppression we fight so hard against. Just as the root causes are inextricably linked, so too must be our possible solutions. To center love in the climate movement, we must balance the technical solutions to reduce greenhouse gas emissions, like solar and energy efficiency, with the moral imperative to reduce harm and cultivate communities of care. We must balance the urgency to act with holding this vision of a thriving world where all of our beloved communities flourish.
UU The Vote. UU The Vote has a fantastic plan for people of our faith to engage in nonpartisan democratic support in this election cycle. In July, our congregation collected $300 for UU The Vote, and we will keep you informed how MVUU will support their work here in Arizona. Feel free to use this QR code to head to their website and learn more. For MVU Showing Up, thank you also to all of you who RSVP to today's training, MVU Showing Up. You have brought us to our attendance capacity for today. Members, friends, our MVU religious professional staff and Reverend Matthew will be gathering at 1 p.m. in the Mesquite Room and online via Zoom for the training. If you didn't RSVP, know that this is just one opportunity for MVU to learn how to better engage, love, and transform the future. Look for more opportunities as our 2024-25 church year unfolds. Today's closing is Releasing the Flame is the Pathway of Healing. Phoenix Bell Shelton Biggs, they, them, is a queer, BIPOC, non-binary seminarian, Unitarian Universalist ministerial intern, and aspiring public theologian. They write, "Friends, thank you for your witness to all that exists on the margins. Thank you for your commitment to hold yourselves and one another in great and steadfast love. Moving forward from this space, may we continue to nurture spiritual growth. May we continue to travel along the winding pathway to healing from whatever brokenness we individually and collectively hold, knowing that we do not journey this path alone. Thank you, and blessed be.
Ever since bringing you a Fats Waller song a couple of weeks ago, the algorithm that is my life keeps feeding me Fats Waller songs. So I'd like to bring you another one. Don't go out late, got no place to go. I'm home about 8, just me and my radio. Ain't misbehaving, saving all my love for you. And I'm not going to sing this one.